speaker. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, thank you for making it a date with us at Green Initiative for Sustainable Development and in collaboration with the Concern on Climate Change for the Community Initiative on this green webinar to mark the Zero Emission Day. The first presenter for today is no other person but Mr. Tochukwu Thankgod Okafor. Is a Dutch scholar in Germany. Mr. Tochukwu, you can actually unmute yourself and start your presentation. Thank you.
Wow, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, it's my pleasure being here. My name is Tochukwu Thankgod Okafor, and I am an MSc student in the Faculty of Natural Sciences at the University of Greifswald, Germany. I am a DAAD scholar. Yeah, and it's really a great pleasure to be here. First of all, I would like to appreciate the founder of this wonderful group, this wonderful NGO. Yeah, he is my lecturer and friend, yes, and someone who is very passionate about conservation, someone who is also very, very concerned about making our planet a better place, in the presence of Mr. Onyekachi Chukwu. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to actually share my view and to present this. All right, I don't know. I would like you to share the screen.
Okay.
Yes, I have a slide, so I would just like to work with a slide.
Okay, you can go on.
All right, so while we're waiting for the slide, I would like us to actually know that what we are celebrating today is the Zero Emissions Day. Yes, the Zero Emissions Day. And then what's this Zero Emissions Day all about? The Zero Emissions Day is all about we trying to make sure that there is no burning of fossil fuels today, yeah, for 24 hours. So in most parts, in fact, all over the world, today marked the Zero Emissions Day. And on this day, it is supposed that there will be no burning of fossil fuels in the world entirely. And what do I mean by burning of fossil fuels? The burning of fossil fuels refers to the burning of oil, natural gas, and coal to generate energy. We use this energy to generate electricity and to power transportation. For example, cars. The cars we use in our day-to-day activities are actually for what? They're actually for us to move about, to do everything we want to do. But these cars also do what? Emit gas, especially the carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. We also have our motorcycles, we have the airplanes, we have the tricycles, and even industrial processes. All these actually what? Lead to what? Generation of electricity or energy in one way or the other. But then they are what we refer to as burning of fossil fuels. Ever since the invention of the first coal-fired steam engines, I think in the 1700s, our burning of fossil fuels have steadily increased. Yeah, it might interest you to know that the burning of fossil fuels has really increased. Yes, and then the effects of these burning of fossil fuels, especially carbon dioxide, is quite alarming. Yes, because these days, the rate at which these fossil fuels are burned, like the rate at which these gases are emitted into the atmosphere, is very alarming. And it really calls for action, because if nothing is done about it, these effects will become more adverse. Yeah, I don't know. Is the screen shared already? The slide? Hello, Mr. Onyekachi.
The slide is shared already. We can see the slide.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you can check.
Problem. Yes, okay. We're on how emission
All right.
Yes.
There. Now, I would like to give us a brief. You can go backward, a bit backward, the previous page. Okay, so I would like to give us a brief history about the Zero Emission Day. Now, this day came about, I think, um, in Canada. Yes, in Canada. The Zero Emissions Day has evolved into a worldwide movement that aims to burn no fossil fuels for 24 hours on that day. It all started in the year 2008 when the founder, Ken Wallace, launched a website in Nova Scotia in Canada, calling for 21st September to be a day of zero fossil fuel consumption. This message was very simple, and I believe it is still simple up till today. Give our planet one day off a year. We all go for public holidays, we have weekends to rest and chill from our day-to-day activities, but the earth never has any day to rest. And that is why this young man, Ken Wallace, came up with this very wonderful idea of the Zero Emissions Day, which is a day that we give rest to the earth. The earth has to rest for one day. Now, the purpose of this day is to give our planet a break from fossil fuels and what they release into the air, at least for one day every year. This encompasses the greenhouse gases, polluting substances, microparticles, and other things that are harming our planet. And then we know the importance of this Zero Emissions Day is paramount because it aims to encourage the use of renewable energy resources. All right, that being said, I would like us to look into how emissions affect the ozone layer and cause climate change. I've already explained what burning of fossil fuels refers to. Yeah, it's the burning of oil, natural gas, and coal to generate energy. How emissions affect the ozone layer and cause climate change. Carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxides are now more abundant in the Earth's atmosphere than any time in the last 800,000 years. Of course, we know that because these days it's really alarming, like I said earlier. The carbon dioxide rate, like the way it emits into the atmosphere, is really very alarming. These greenhouse gas emissions have increased the greenhouse effect and caused the Earth's surface temperature to rise. This, as we all know, is the primary cause of global warming in the world today. This has resulted to the Earth's climate change, and we really need to do something about this. All right, please, the next slide. Yeah, so the burning of fossil fuels changes the climate more than any other human activities. We have lots of activities in our day-to-day lives, but then the burning of fossil fuels is the major cause of climate change in the whole. That's when you combine all the human activities together. All right, human activities currently release over 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. Like whenever I come across this, I actually pity the earth because I can imagine if the earth is actually a human being, of course, it would have died a long time ago, owing to the kind of dangerous gases that that is being emitted into the atmosphere each year. This is really very, very alarming. Yeah. All right. The atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations have increased by more than 40% since pre-industrial times, from approximately 280 parts per million in the 18th century. And now in 2022, we have over 414 per million. Now you can see the adverse effects of this climate change, the adverse effects of fossil burnings on our climate today. Like I said earlier, the effects of burning of fossil fuels, especially carbon dioxide, is quite alarming, and we all really need to do something about it. We have to put all hands on deck to actually help to solve this. Now, for example, in Germany here, I think Germany has one of the best public transport systems in the world because the government is actually trying everything possible to reduce the rate of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Yeah. Also, they do a lot of tree planting activities, but let me finish the one about the public transport system. In Germany, they have the S-Bahn system, which is the normal trains. Then they have the U-Bahn. The U-Bahn is the underground train. And then they also have the, what's it called? The S-Bahn, the U-Bahn, and then the trams. Now, these things actually help us to limit the emission of gas into the atmosphere. For instance, the trains are electric, they're electronic, so they don't have to emit gases. And last month, the month of August, they actually reduced the payments for the monthly fee to about €9 to ensure that almost every what's it called? Every citizen can afford it. And you can see as at that month, the rate of emission was really low because most people did not really need their cars to transport themselves to works, to offices, to school, and all of that. All you need to do is just buy your monthly ticket. You use the trains and the buses because they are mostly electronic. Now, this is one way they have tried to conquer this carbon emissions. Another way we can actually do this is by planting trees. It is no longer new that trees actually help in carbon sequestration. Yeah, what do I mean by carbon sequestration? When you, for example, we humans, we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Now, it is the trees that emit, it is the trees that absorb this carbon dioxide that we breathe in, that we breathe out. When you take, for instance, the carbon emissions I'm talking about now, the burning of fossil fuels, if we have more trees in the society, if we plant more trees, you will find out that these trees will actually absorb this carbon and thereby protecting our climate. We won't really suffer much of the global change, the global warming that we are facing currently. All right, let's go back. Previous slide, please. The previous page. Can you go to the previous slide?
Sorry, I'm having a little challenge. Probably you can help us conclude from here. I'm having serious challenge here.
All right, no problem. The previous slide was actually supposed to show us a chart. And in that chart, you're supposed to see the rate at which the carbon is.
We now have it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we have it now. So if you look closely at this chart, you would discover that we have a lot of gases here. We can start with the green one. The green one is actually the carbon dioxide. You can see how gross it is. Like it is just too much. Yes, it's a lot of percentage over there. Then the orange one is the methane, which is also a harmful gas to our climate. Then we have the nitrogen oxide and the rest of them. Yeah, the navy blue one, which is under, is about 15 other gases. And you can see how small these 15 other gases are compared to the carbon. So please, this is really for us to take note that carbon emission is really one of the major problems. It is one of the major causes of global warming in the world today. By the right-hand side, I said, of the greenhouse gases shown in the chart, carbon oxide accounts for by far the largest share of radiative forcing since 1990, and its contribution continues to grow at a steady rate. Carbon dioxide alone would account for a 36% increase in radiative forcing since 1990. It's clearly shown there on the chart, and this is really very, very alarming. I know we don't have enough time, so I would like to conclude here. You can just move the slide to the next page, the conclusion page. But before I conclude, I would like to really encourage each and every one of us for I want to really encourage each and every one of us to do the little we can to save our planet, because our planet is really suffering. We can actually do this by planting trees. We can do this by looking for other renewable energy sources for our energy. Okay, we need to get these things because we've seen that carbon emissions and emission of other gases are actually very, very harmful to our ecosystem and climate. Conclusion: the importance of Zero Emissions Day is immense. since this movement has everyone's best interest at heart, we can all start making small changes that will contribute to making the world a better place and help preserve life on our planet. Yes, this will actually help us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 11, 13, and 15. Thank you very much for listening. Dankeschön.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tochukwu Okafor. That's a very brief and concise one there from Germany. We really, really appreciate your contribution. I don't know if the ED of 4C is here. He will be taking the second presentation right away, and we can keep our questions so that after the presentation, we will all we will take our questions. So if Mr. Gabriel Abraham Bala is up, I'm trying to share your screen now so that.
Yeah, I'm up. If you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
can you see your screen?
So just put up the slide so that I just.
Can you see your screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just change it. Yeah, good. So, good evening, everybody. I mean, good. Yes, good evening. So, Mr. Tochukwu, thank you for giving me a very soft landing. I think you've just introduced my first two slides, whereby you discuss about the gases that we are having issues with them as far as climate change is concerned, with which carbon is one of the major ones. So, what I want to do is just a little cap up of what you've just done, to just discuss what is carbon footprint and how to calculate offices. So let me start with the first slide, which is showing a pictorial listing of what carbon footprint is, and then how individual, as in all the actions of human beings can contribute to carbon. As you can see, the footprint there, we have the cars we use, we have the industries, we have the use of land, forest, electricity, other energy, buildings, and a lot of them, with the little percentage of which carbon they actually contribute to the atmosphere. So these are a very pictorial explanation of what carbon footprint is. So it's the combination of everything we do as human beings, and then it contributes to the amount of carbon emitted to the atmosphere. As you can see, this is a very good picture that captures almost everything. In one way or the other, we will be involved in it. Is it the use of road transport? Is it the agriculture? Is it our building? The use of fossil fuel electricity? Is it the non-transport, which are the like airplane? Then we have the land waste fuel, the use of the industries that we have. All in all, if you add up, these are what contribute to the carbon footprint we have in the atmosphere. Next slide. So what is carbon footprint? Let me just do a little definition. So historically, they say carbon footprint can be defined as the total set of greenhouse gases, which Tochukwu just explained to us what are the emissions caused by an organization or an event or a product or a person. So you see, all of us belong to these four categories. You either belong to one organization, or the carbon you emitted was actually emitted during one event, or there's a product of which you are using that can actually contribute to the carbon footprint of the earth. Or you, as a person in your house, that is how you can actually contribute. So you either belong to any of these four, you actually belong to all the four. So it is an extension of the concept of ecological footprint initially developed by an archaeologist called William Rees at the University of British Columbia in the 1990s. And we have one Dr. Matthias Wackenagel, the ED of Global Footprint Network, that said the phrase got its own this from back. Previous slide, please. I said the phrase got its boost in 2005 through an enormous British petroleum media campaign on carbon footprint. Next slide, please. So, as I've said, is the total amount of greenhouse gases produced directly or indirectly to support human activities, usually expressed in equivalents of tons of carbon dioxide. You can see at the end of it, we'll see how each activity we all involve in you can calculate the amount of carbon footprint you've actually emitted by doing that activity. So you say your carbon footprint is the sum of all emissions of carbon which were induced by your activities in a given time frame. So probably you take your car to drive from here, maybe go to Damaturu, You know the amount of fuel you've consumed, you know the distance covered. You can calculate to know how much of the carbon footprint you've actually emitted at that period. Next slide, please. And these are what Tochukwu just explained, the greenhouse gases we have. We have the methane, we have water, we have ozone, we have the CO2, and all the contribution of which they do to the atmosphere. Next slide, please. So, but in all of these greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide is actually one of the major issues we have that actually contributes to the global warming issue. As you can see from the chart Tochukwu gave, carbon is more than like 60% of what we are actually emitting as carbon, as a fossil fuel, as the greenhouse gas. So, and there are the reasons why the earth is getting warmer and warmer. So for us, carbon footprint is a very, very powerful tool to understand the impact of individual behavior on the global warming. Next slide, please. So this is a beginning of how the calculation can be. We have those of the substances we use that produce the carbon. We have petrol, we have gasoline, we have diesel, then we have the wood we burn. Now, each of these 1 liter of petrol you use contributes to 2.3 kg of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Same thing with gasoline. Diesel has higher because, of course, even during the refining, diesel is more heavier. It's not completely well refined. That is why you see this one is at around 2.7. So let's say if your car consumes 7.5 liters of petrol for like 100 kilometer drive, then a drive of 300 kilometers, you multiply the amount of carbon produced for each liter by the distance covered. Then that gives you the amount of carbon emitted at that time. As you can see, the rough calculation there is 3 multiplied by 7.5 gives you 22.75 liters of petrol. If you do that and now add for each of 1 liter, it emits 2.3 kg. You will find out that you have 2.3 kg multiplied by 22.5 liters of petrol, which gives you 51.75 kg of carbon emitted, just for you to cover a distance of 300 kilometers with a gasoline car. That is actually very, very large, because most of us, this is the minimum we can actually travel probably in a week, even within a town. Next slide, please. So same with other activities. As we see how we can see how when it comes to the cooking of clean energy we use, let's say we have a estimated of 2.4 billion people without clean cooking energy. Of course, cooking is another very big aspect of emission of gas. Then we use wood or firewood, as you call it. For each 1.9 kg of wood produced, we burn, actually, we have 3 kg of carbon emitted. So can you imagine, there's a statistic that says 2.4 billion people in the world, that's like 1/3 of the world, are living without clean energy. So they use firewood to make food. So you can imagine the calculation there to show you how much of the impact these 2.4 billion people without clean energy contribute to the carbon we have in the atmosphere. So that's where we have 2.4 billion people using, let's say, approximately 3.157 kg, as in for each 2 kg of wood burnt, that's for one person, it emits 3.17 kg of carbon to the atmosphere. So with 2.4 billion people using wood fuel, or what do you call them, firewood, locally known, they emit 7,576,800 tons of carbon. That's actually quite much. So one of the ways we can do to reduce this is to see how we can produce this large number of people with fuel efficient stuff, so that they could stop burning down our woods and then our trees. This is another breakdown of what we can be discussing. This is like traveling by public transport, which most people don't want to do. People want to have their own cars to drive so that they will show that they have money. I don't know. But if you can actually use a public transport, it has a reduction of the carbon you emit, because a bus that carries, let's say, 15 people will burn the same amount of diesel that one person will carry his car to go ride with. So if you can use the public transport whereby we have 12 people, that means it's like reducing the amount of carbon emitted by 11 more people to what 12 people can do. So one train or bus can actually reduce carbon. So if we have opportunity to use public transport, it's another big way of which we can reduce our carbon. Look at how flying with an aeroplane for each distance. So these are the effects. Carbon footprint is ultimate effect and of a large
Please,
carbon footprint. We have greenhouse, whether human or natural produce, contribute to the warming of the planet. From 1990 to 2005, carbon dioxide emission have increased by 31%. This is what I think Tochukwu have said initially. So by 2008,
please, Mr. Gabriel, can we start rounding up? Yes,
okay.
just start rounding up.
So, sure. I think I've always done. Can I go to the next slide? This is like the calculation of, again, like we can go online and get this site. We can see whether it's a house, flight, car, motorbike, whichever way you want to do it. You just input the amount of what you have used. That gives you the total amount of household carbon footprint. So it's a big question to all of us is, ask yourself the following question. Does your office, your home, have a recycling program for its waste, carbon cans and bottles? Does your office have a policy on recycling and papers? These are all things that we need to pollute the earth. We need to start from there as small as we can in our homes and offices. Does your office have involved in local environmental activities? Does your office have a policy and strategy to reduce its energy consumption, like converting to solar, as we discussed in the morning with Onyekachi in our office? Next slide, please. These are questions all of us should please try and ask. So we should all take measures to reduce our carbon footprint, no matter how little it is, as Thankgod have said. Just start a little, and all of us will actually achieve the goal. I think that's all I have. Thank you for listening, and then you can have your questions. Thank you, Onyeka, for the time.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think I will just do a little bit of recap of what you said and conclude so that we can have one or two questions. This meeting was actually scheduled for only 40 minutes, and we have less than 5 minutes to go. However, how can we go beyond net zero? Okay, that's the question I want us to address. Of course, before now, we know what climate change, we'll be hearing climate change, but according to the United Nations, climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather. Okay, it is the biggest health threat in the world facing humanity. It reflects in drought, desertification, rise in sea level, erosion, flood, and so on and so forth. It's the biggest crisis our planet is facing right now. But the good news is that we have the power to actually do something. Now, this picture was taken precisely last week from Moduganari in Maiduguri, Borno State, where flood took over hundreds of houses, okay? And of course, if you look at the news recently in 2017, the new humanitarian reported that Nigerian farmers can't fight desertification alone, okay? Then Al Jazeera reported tragedy foretold. Brazil sees surge in Amazon fire. Of course, the Amazon fire this year is like never before. Now, of course, the last picture was reported by Premium Times. It said over 280 active erosion sites in the southeastern Nigeria. And when you look at this, these are the effects of climate change. We can see them very close to us. But now, do you dream to have a positive impact on the world? Of course, you can go what we call carbon neutral. It is the state of net zero carbon emission. What do you do as a company when you emit carbon? You try to create something that will absorb the equal amount of carbon you emit, probably by tree planting, by changing to solar, and so on and so forth, so that the amount emitted will be the same with the amount absorbed. But of course, the message we came with this evening is to tell you how to go beyond zero. We don't want to remain at zero, okay, as a country, as a nation, but we want to go beyond zero. And how do we go beyond zero? We go beyond zero by what we call the carbon handprint. Of course, the carbon handprint is actually the opposite of the footprint that the last speaker just talked about. The handprint recognizes actions that we could take to have positive impact on the climate. And in conclusion, okay, while the carbon footprint is the combination of the negative impact one action can have on the environment. The carbon handprint is all the positive things one does to affect their footprint. And from the picture we have, it says with enough handprints, we can heal this planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Now, with the few minutes we have, I would now want our audience, if you have questions, you can now, we can now have your questions, so that just raise your hand so that you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, who do we have there? The questions. I've not seen any hand. Okay, Hadiza. Hadiza, you can actually unmute yourself. Hadiza Mohammed, you can unmute yourself and let's have your question. Okay, Hadiza. Okay, while we wait for Hadiza, Usman Aliu, the Zanna Gayama of Borno State. Okay, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello. Tukura Muhammad Soba, not
okay, Tukura Muhammad Soba.
Just
okay,
like that. I think it's
okay.
the.
Okay, let's have your question.
I am Tukura Muhammad Soba, not this. Please, is the device.
Okay, carry on, sir. We have less than 2 minutes. Carry on. We have less than 2 minutes. Okay, Usman.
Hello.
Aliu, can we have your question?
Yeah, good evening all.
Good evening.
Yeah, my question, I was asked this afternoon by one of our media radio house.
Okay.
What is the relationship between flooding and climate change? So they want me to explain to them the link.
The relationship between flood and climate change. We've gotten the question. Mr. Gabriel, can you respond to that question? I think it will be our last question for today. Then we call it a day. Mr. Gabriel.
Okay, so let me try answering though. Is the relationship between flooding and climate change is actually very, very obvious. We know climate change causes rise in sea level. So once we have rise in sea level, we are expected to have the oceans and the river banks will have flooding over themselves. Then waterways will actually be choked, and then before you know it, we have flood. We will not know it's flood because until it comes down to places where human beings are staying. Normally, when we have this rise in sea level, it could not be anywhere close by to where we are, but because water bodies are linked to themselves, it could actually have an effect on us, even down here. So anywhere we have climate change, we will have a rise in sea level, and that could cause flooding.
Thank you for that sharp one. We have less than 1 minute. Tukura, can you ask your question just very fast so that we can end this session? I think he's facing network challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for making it a date with us. I'm really, really delighted on behalf. I'm really, really delighted.
On behalf, thank you very much for this.
I think we don't have time anymore. Please